One of the great joys in my life of being a reader is reading about stories that will have a lasting impact on me. And that's why I want to talk about The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. I first watched the series, the BBC series with Benedict Cumberbatch and Martin Freeman as Watson. And I was like, I've never read the books. I'm going to start reading these books a few years ago. This is about pre 2020. And I'm not lying when I tell you that I started reading the Sherlock Holmes novels, starting with A Sign of the Four, which was written, I think, in 1887, or A Study in Scarlet. That's what it was, A Study in Scarlet. That blew my mind. I bought the complete volume of his works, of Sherlock Holmes, the original works, and I just could not put it down. Conan Doyle, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, was way ahead of his time. One of the most memorable things I've ever read in my life is the Sherlock Holmes novels. What a great, I mean, I'm telling you, for the 1800s, the way he keeps you engaged, he was a masterclass writer. So I could not put them down. I thought they were, I love Sherlock Holmes and I love Dr. Watson. Those characters are some of the best characters ever written in any piece of literature. They're one of the best duos of all time. You know how you have Frodo and Sam, Batman and Robin? Well, what is Sherlock without Watson? Between Sherlock and Watson is impeccable. They are the perfect balance to one another. I thought that Martin Freeman's portrayal as Watson was really, really good, but I also like the portrayal of the series back in the 80s. There was a mini series in the 80s that came out, which was also cast very well. I remember my dad going to check those out at the library. That was also well cast. So, but back to the stories. I'm not kidding. If you've never read these stories, you need to do it. There's a reason why some of the classics will never be beaten. Like going up against the classics, especially Sherlock Holmes, it's one of the biggest joys and pleasures of all of literature. And I'm making it today to just tell you how excited I was to read it, how impactful the whole series was on me, because that is the definition, in my opinion, of a great mystery. And Sherlock and his, you know, he's deeply intellectual, highly OCD. He's like the original Sheldon from like the Big Bang Theory in real life back in the 1800s. He was one of those OCD obsessed geniuses who just basically knew everything. He was also too smart for his own good. Where he was really smart in some things, he lacked the knowledge in other things. And that's where of course, we have Dr. Watson come in to be the balance, to be more of the voice of reason, because Sherlock could be so eccentric. And I'm not kidding when I say I rarely reread a book series, but Sherlock Holmes is one of those series where I would gladly go back again and read the entire works, because it's not just the four novels of Sherlock Holmes. Most notably, off the top of my head, there was A Study in Scarlet, The Sign of the Four, The Hound of the Baskervilles, and I think The Drawing of the Three. I think those are the four original novels, and then there was 56 or 57 short stories. And could you imagine being alive at this time when these books came out? Because even in the 1880s to 1890s, when these came out, it reads like it came out today. I'm telling you, the pacing in these novels is just as good. It was just as good then as it is today. Like Charles Dickens, for example, one of the best authors of all time. When he put out books, they were very wordy, and I still enjoy them, and I still think he's one of the best authors ever who ever lived. But you have to understand, from when I learned, the more words you put in a book back at that time, at least during the Dickens era, which is the early to mid 1800s, you got paid by the word. So when you're putting out all these pages with all these words, you're going to get extra income, extra revenue. So it makes sense why Dickens would put out those types of works, because he needed to make extra money. And let's get into the science aspect of the Sherlock Holmes book series. It didn't create forensics, but by focusing on fingerprint and ballistics and bullet trajectory, it really jump started science to go in that direction, to look into those types of inventions to help law enforcement. Sherlock Holmes got people curious about crime, got people interested in criminal justice, going into that field. And so Sherlock Holmes is the pioneer fiction series that launched ballistics, fingerprinting, or at least advanced the craft of these scientific maneuvers, which is another reason why the whole Sherlock Holmes series is just fascinating. Because I was like, wait a second, they're talking about this stuff even in the 1880s and 1890s. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. Like when you read, I think it's A Study in Scarlet. That's the first novel. They're all good. You can buy the whole volume. Like in the description of this picture you see in the video, it looks like that. At least the one that I own. It's just buried in one of my books in storage. I didn't have access to get to it. But if you've never read the Sherlock Holmes series, you're truly missing out on a literary masterpiece. All the novels, all the short stories, some of the best works that I've ever read in my life. I'm talking top 10. That's how good these stories are. And it's very rare that not only do you have a great book series, but you have the movies and or the TV series to match how epic the book series is. The only example the only other, because the BBC Sherlock series was epic, 10 out of 10. The one from the 80s, I think it was called The Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. It came out in the 80s. That was also epic, 10 out of 10 in casting and of setting and soundtrack and of wardrobe. The only thing I can think that comes close is the first two Harry Potter movies to the Harry Potter books and the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Very rarely can a movie trilogy match the actual trilogy. Lord of the Rings, probably, in my opinion, the most epic trilogy in history. Just my opinion. Peter Jackson took that story, was very familiar with it, and made it into a cinematic masterpiece. And so that's what we have when you read Sherlock Holmes, a masterpiece of literature, of English detective literature that reads well even in the 2020s. And I would literally put the Sherlock Holmes series in my top 10 greatest series ever. Definitely top 10. And I would put, because I can't separate the novels, they're all kind of tied together. So in terms of enjoyment of what I've read in my life, I would definitely put them. I maybe in the top 5. It sparked something in me to read Sherlock Holmes, and I'm forever grateful that I did. Best purchase I ever made. Honestly, that book was probably only $12 to $15, and I still think about it to this day. So, what a fantastic series! If you've never read it, buy the volume. There's like a volume 1 and a volume 2 where you have the complete works, the 4 novels and the 56 or 57 short stories. It is a treat. Let me know in the comments what you think of Sherlock Holmes. How did you like Sherlock Holmes? What was your favorite story of Sherlock Holmes? Like, what's your favorite novel? A lot of people, off the top of my head, Peter Cushing, he also played Dracula back in the 60s and 70s in a lot of movies. Peter Cushing, I believe, played Sherlock in a movie that came out in the 70s called The Hound of the Baskervilles. Sherlock Holmes and the Hound of the Baskervilles, which is based off of the novel Sherlock Holmes and the Hound of the Baskervilles. So I haven't actually watched that, but I need to get to watching that because Peter Cushing was a great actor back in the day, just like Christopher Lee, of course, who portrayed Dracula, is what he's known for, and of course Saruman in the Lord of the Rings series. So let me know in the comments your favorite Sherlock Holmes novel or short story. I'm curious to know. If you haven't read this series, you're truly missing out on a literary masterpiece that could change your life and help you look at life in a different way altogether. Thank you so much if you made it this far. Please feel free to subscribe to my channel where I plan on doing more book reviews, movie reviews, television show reviews, and just pop culture talk in general. Thanks for watching if you made it this far.